Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on Wi-Fi 6 for WISPs. I'm Bruce Miller, run enterprise marketing for Cambium Networks, and I'm joined here today by Drew Lentz from Frontera Consulting. Hi, Drew. Thanks for joining.
Good morning.
And also Mark Heeman from Cambium Networks. So we're going to walk through some content here that's going to talk about the technology, why it's important, why should you care as a WISP, as a Cambium customer, and talk a little bit about the opportunity in managed services that could be afforded by the technology. Drew's going to go through some real-world applications, and as always, any questions, please enter them into the questions window. We'll take those at the end or along the way. Looking for interactivity, whatever types of things that pop up from your side that the conversation strikes. Certainly good. Looking to hear from you. So let's get into this here. Today we have, we're going to focus on Wi-Fi. So obviously Cambium as a broad range provider of wireless solutions that connect, long haul, backhaul, point-to-point links all the way down to the edge of the network where you're connecting devices and end users. And that's what we're going to focus on today, is the latter part of this. But ultimately, this is all about wireless technology and how can this serve your customers and potentially open up new opportunities to you and your businesses. So when we talk about Wi-Fi 6, that is the latest, greatest technology that has come out in the Wi-Fi space. It's the 6th generation. It's not even ratified officially by the IEEE, so a lot of people think, well, we're getting ahead of ourselves. But the reality is it's actually here today. It's quite likely that you're running Wi-Fi 6 and you don't even know about it in your network today. And so we want to look at some of those things that make this an important technology and why that is the case. So from an applications perspective, probably the one in the upper left here is the most relevant to anyone here today in terms of their day-to-day world. At least I know that Zoom and Teams and GoToMeeting and all of these platforms are doing lots of video conferencing today. I'm using it every day. We're using it right now. These are very important to keep the world close together and allow us to continue to do business and school as we work from home or otherwise compared to what we're doing just 9 months ago. But the point overall here is that there are lots of applications that are taking up bandwidth, that are tasking networks that have new requirements for SLAs or more stringent requirements in terms of latency and jitter or loss or otherwise. That make the wireless networks we deploy and the robustness very, very critical. You can't have a lot of packet loss or jerky performance when you're doing some of these kinds of things. When you're using medical applications remotely, when you are watching video or using video in any kind of context, these things start to really impact networks. From a performance perspective, and not just from a pure capacity perspective, but some of the metrics to just ensure quality. And a lot of these applications are now entering the home or the remote business location, and more you're seeing that the technology needs to be looked at from a very critical perspective. Can I handle the needs of the network? Are they going to allow me to do my job or go to school or otherwise? Are upgrades or infrastructure changes necessary? So we'll talk a little bit about some of those things and what the technology can bring and benefit from that perspective. Here's just a view of how things have changed, in the last, 8 months or so. This is a provider that tracks active devices at home. You can see just the massive spike, all of a sudden everywhere in mid March as everyone started to move towards home. Your mileage may vary depending on where you live around the world. Some places have recovered more quickly, but here in the U.S., there's still most people working remote, and the number of devices, the amount of bandwidth has increased significantly. And then these shifts are now tasking networks, or you've probably had to adjust in many cases what you're doing based on this kind of use case. And I know certainly as a vendor we've seen our business change quite dramatically. Folks working from home, but also just some of the needs and the product requirements that we have shifted in the last 8 months. So change is the norm. That's what we have to adjust and live with and figure out how to deal with. I threw in a market slide here just to kind of give you a sense of what's going on. I mentioned it a little bit earlier, but Wi-Fi 6 is here today. Roughly, if you look at this chart, maybe 20% of what we call enterprise Wi-Fi is Wi-Fi 6 in 2020, and we're just about the end of the year. And next year it's going to be 50%, approaching 50% or more, depending on which analyst you talk to. So, that technology is in the network. It's available today. We're shipping products from both the client and the AP side of things, and it's important to look at why that's important. Why do I care about that, and is there going to be an impact on my network? One thing I would say is Wi-Fi 6 is more of a revolutionary technology than Wi-Fi 5 or 11AC was. It's been, a lot of folks will say one was evolutionary, Wi-Fi 6 is revolutionary, whatever term works best, but there are some significant advantages, and I think that's why you are seeing a very quick adoption of the technology in most vendors. They're putting the chipsets in, maturing the technology very quickly and getting it out there into the marketplace.
That's one thing. That's the slide that I love to see. I love to look at if you look between 2019 and 2020, you see there's that little bit of adoption, right? But 2020 to 2021, this is the year that more devices are available that have the chipsets in them. What I've seen in restaurant and retail coming up over the last year is just the transition of the sheer number of devices that have moved over to Wi-Fi 6 as opposed to Wi-Fi 5 are tremendous. I mean, everything from the new iPhone to any of the new Samsung devices, all that stuff is phenomenal to see how quickly it's moving to Wi-Fi 6. That adoption's taking place really rapidly.
Right.
To see.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think you can see a little bit here, like at the top of the curve, there was a little bit of slowdown in the market. You could, look at COVID as an impact of that, but the expectation is that things will accelerate. And just like you're saying, Drew, it's ubiquitous, in many new devices today. We're already into the second generation, for example, the iPhones and Samsungs, some of these. You can see, most new products, or at least if you're getting could be a $500 laptop, they will have a Wi-Fi 6 chipset in there. So, the technology is there and it's available.
Yeah, I think that was the big one for me when I went and looked at some of the devices, what was connecting to the network. It's not just the high-end devices that have Wi-Fi 6 in them anymore. Now the lower-end devices are starting to pick up, and now that the chipset's gotten cheaper, even the stuff that's being issued by school districts, the Chromebooks, like the Surface Go's, some of the lower-end models, those are really starting to show up with Wi-Fi 6, which is great.
Right. Drew, in your work, do you have a good way of tracking that, even on some of your customers? How many are using Wi-Fi 6? Or
it's not a metric necessarily that I look at. I glance at it. I look at some of the different properties that I manage. Yeah. And I say, where are they trending? More so to look at how much overall capacity they're going to start consuming, because if I see Wi-Fi 6 clients trending upwards at apartment complexes, or we do a couple of condominium complexes. If I start to see on the summer visitation, the spring breaks, the vacation holidays, if I start to see more and more Wi-Fi 6 adoption, what I need to look at is, before the next holiday, I need to make sure that I have enough capacity there, that I've turned them up as high as they can go, that maybe I need to go from a gig to a gig and a half, or maybe I need to bump them up to 500 meg, depending on the size of the property. I like to just peek in and see what that rate of climb is with Wi-Fi 6, because they're going to, the more you give them, the more they'll use, right? So, and I think every WISP knows that, it's too much is never enough. And so what I see, the more people that have the new TVs that can stream 4K or that can stream 8K, it's going to start to happen. They're going to start to utilize that. So to get ahead of that curve, you want to watch that adoption rate take off, so that you can say, hey, Mr. Customer, Mrs. Customer, you've got a big week coming up. You've got Thanksgiving coming up. You've got holiday seasons coming up. More people are going to be using more higher throughput devices. Maybe now is the chance to throttle it up a little bit to make sure that everybody's taken care of.
Yeah, no, very good points. Right, and the fact that these things are there, and you probably don't even know about it if you're not tracking it. It's something to be aware of and start to look at. One thing I wanted to do next here is pop into a poll real quick. So if you are obviously in front of your computer there and can take a quick vote here on what or when actually do you expect to see interest in Wi-Fi 6 in your customer base? We'd be interested in seeing how you're responding there. Maybe you don't have any visibility to that, or you don't have folks asking for the technology per se, but would be interested to see from a percentage perspective how many of you are seeing immediate needs and folks asking about it. I know in some of the forums, Drew and I were talking before that we track from a WISP perspective. We are seeing it pop up in some of the requests. So let's see what we get here. I'll close this in a couple seconds here. If you could just pop in your vote, we'll take a look at the results. All right, so here we see about a third of you, a little over a third of you are seeing interest or need for it now. And then within the next year, the vast majority are in that category. So I know this might be a little bit hard to speculate if you haven't heard about it yet, but the technology is imminent, it's in people's hands. One of the things too that I think, just even looking at home networks today, there's a massive upgrade in terms of what people have been doing in the home. The ASP, or the average selling price of home routers, has jumped as people look at faster types of devices. So it's evident that they have more need, and obviously Wi-Fi 6 is one of the technologies that promises, obviously better performance and benefits to the customer. So we'll talk a little bit about the technology. But I didn't want to go too much into the speeds and feeds part of it, but it's important to understand again why it's important and why you would even care. If you've been tracking Wi-Fi technology, I've been in this industry myself, over 15 years, and it's come a long way in about 22, 23 years since the first spec came out in 1997, and obviously the general trend here is faster, more dense, more efficient, all those kinds of things. But as I said before, Wi-Fi 6 really is more revolutionary than evolutionary compared to some of the previous generations. It's obviously faster, but it does that in a way that makes it a lot more efficient and better capable of supporting some of those applications I talked about, the stringent requirements for video and things like that we are now trusting our wireless network to. And it's not an overlay technology; it's a utility that you plug in or you connect up. You don't plug in, and it just needs to work, right? So there's been some really significant updates to the technology, and we'll talk a little bit about those just to kind of get a sense of what those are. So one thing, to kind of put some analogies out here, but Wi-Fi 5, which is kind of the 11AC generation, really had a very inefficient transmission system, or a way of packing the content into the transmission slots that the device would have. So one way to think about this is, with Wi-Fi 5, one device transmits at a time, and regardless of how much data they're going to transmit, you basically get the same payload size. It's going to be taking up, whether it's a piano or a football, as the analogy is here, it's going to be taking up a truck worth of bandwidth as you transmit. So very inefficient. Regardless of how big or small, you basically are taking up the same amount of room from a time slot perspective. While in contrast with Wi-Fi 6, you now can pack those things in and get more things on the truck at the same time. So the efficiency of the technology, in this specific case OFMDMA, is much more efficient, because I can take the resources available to me, chunk them down to very small little bites, and then to dole those out to different clients. So here, a color represents a different device, a different computer, a different phone, what have you. Whether they're transmitting a big packet or a small packet, they can jump on the same truck. That ultimately reduces the latency and makes the technology, significantly more efficient.
I love
we'll
that.
talk about
I
that
love
a little
this example here. This is one of my favorite to use. And it's not just this, right? It's not just the ability. I always talk about a USB drive in a piano. I think that, I love the way that illustrates it.
Yeah.
So it's not just about, the box size is the same, whether it's a piano or a USB drive, but it's also about the fact that for everything that ships out, it's one truck can go make one run. One delivery truck can deliver the piano in a big box, and one truck can deliver a flash drive in one trip and then go back in one box. But what happens here is now with MU-MIMO, in addition to resource units and OFDMA, what you have is you don't just have the ability to do one delivery route at a time. You're doing 4 to 6 to 8 delivery routes all at the same time, all with multiple size boxes. So it really, it helps out a lot in the sense that no matter what it is that you're trying to do, you really have the ability to carve up those resource units and use them. And that's something that I see a significant use case for this, specifically when we deal with some of the managed service providers. So yeah, I love this example.
Right. And you spoke to the next piece too, right? Then you can do it in parallel. And this is assuming that you have big payloads here, but it could be small and big all mixed up. You now have more lanes on the freeway to concurrently transmit. So, wireless, if you go back to, I don't know, early 90s, late 80s, when hubs were the way that you would connect your Ethernet connections, you can really think of the analogy too of going from a hub to a switch is what Wi-Fi has done. It's gone from shared medium, everybody sits back and waits their turn, to now simultaneous transmissions, both directions, much more efficient. Multiple lanes on the freeway as opposed to everybody kind of choking down to one. I can now transmit multiple devices at the same time. I'm much more efficient in using that medium. And that directly translates to the quality factor that people are seeing on their network. And there's so many times I've run into, things where, people don't trust the wireless, and they say, well, if you're doing such and such a job, then make sure you're connected to an Ethernet port. You can't trust wireless has been kind of the assumption from some people, certainly over time. But we're at the point now where we've matured to ensure that you have a high quality connection, and the efficiency of Wi-Fi has really gotten to that level. So, and then we've done a lot of testing just to kind of put this into practice. So a couple ways of looking at this: if I change out the client, I can improve performance, and we saw about a 40% increase in throughput by just switching from a Wi-Fi 5 AP, which is in gray, to a Wi-Fi 6 AP. So same clients, but I changed my infrastructure side. In this specific test, of course, your mileage may vary. We got a 40% improvement. And then in this test, we changed both sides of the link, and we got a 135% improvement. So, just to kind of contrast again, change the infrastructure side 40, change both sides of the link 135. So these were real world numbers that we saw in testing some of our products when we transitioned from Wi-Fi 5 to Wi-Fi 6. So, the numbers are real. The performance benefits are definitely evident in terms of just the benefits that you can see, greater signal level, faster speeds. But again, under the hood, you're not always using the full bandwidth to pack those wireless links. You just need the quality so that your video is not stuttering, that your voice is transparent, and these are the kinds of things that we're going to be relying on more and more over wireless connections everywhere.
That's one of the things I think is neat with this that has been seen all across the industry is the big question is, okay, well, let's say I have a hybrid network, right? I've got Wi-Fi 5 access points and Wi-Fi 6 access points. What happens if I start to integrate Wi-Fi 6 access points into a Wi-Fi 5 environment, and then you have all the different 802.11ac clients that are out there, Wave 1, Wave 2, whatever it is, or even the end clients? Is there a performance enhancement by moving to Wi-Fi 6 and having those clients move to Wi-Fi 6? And one of the neat use cases that I saw is where if you take one AP inside your facility, say there's 4 APs in there, even 3, and you take one of them and you swap it with a Wi-Fi 6 access point, what happens is now the Wi-Fi 6 devices that are connecting in on that Wi-Fi 6 access point, because of the resource units, because of MIMO, because of everything that they have, they're actually eating up less airtime than they would if they were attached to a Wi-Fi 5 access point. So even if you just want to start by putting one new device in and have the other legacy devices there, what you end up with is an immediate performance increase because you've decreased the amount of airtime that's being used by those devices and by that AP, which actually increases the performance on the Wi-Fi 5 side. So you don't have to go in and swap out, like pull out all the Wi-Fi 5 devices. Start with one. And that one, as long as it's positioned correctly, right, installed correctly, it can start to offload some of those Wi-Fi 6 clients. Because right now, I mean, even if you looked at that chart where people said, that poll that we just did, right now there's a lot of people that say, hey, we have a demand for it now. Well, if there's a demand for it now, fill that demand with one AP. You don't have to swap everything, but fill it with one AP. So that way, a year down the road, for the other 27% of people that say, hey, it's coming, at least now you're positioned in a way that can start to ease people into that transition. Start with one, next year move up to two, or maybe next year swap out to three. So that way you help kind of dip your toes in the water and make that a cleaner air environment or a cleaner RF environment for the people that are using the Wi-Fi in your facility. That's one of my favorite use cases of transitioning to this. That's like the big difference, I think, between AC and AX, right? Or AC Wave 2, whatever you want to call Wi-Fi 5, and 4 or 5 up to 6 is 6 gives you the ability to really increase efficiency overall, even in a mixed environment. And I think that that's something that doesn't get enough credit for what it has the capability to do.
Right. That's a very good point. It's what kind of this previous slide showed was, you get the benefits right out of the gate, and very good point in terms of, the backward compatibility here, something that Wi-Fi has carried forward, over all the generations, but it affords you immediate benefit, without having to have both sides of the link actually supporting it. And then one more point here, because again, talk the speeds and feeds of this, but there is, it's good to start thinking of Wi-Fi, beyond, the connectivity is there is a platform that it presents that really enables a lot more services to ultimately deliver to the customer. When we talk about video, we talk about voice, IoT, and then if you get into public locations, there's other services that can be delivered. This chart here talks, about a whole mouthful of things, but there are ways that Wi-Fi networks are being monetized or otherwise used for more than just pure connectivity. And these represent opportunities to upsell additional services and monetize as well. So depending on, what kind of market you're in and the kinds of customers that you're servicing, if you think towards businesses and ways that they rely on connectivity, there's ways of inserting additional value into those contracts. Perhaps could be, guest services or advertising. Location is increasingly going to be something that you'll see, prevalent as folks are tracking where people are at, perhaps from a contact tracing perspective, or just looking at metrics to analyze their environment and understand traffic flow and things of that nature. And obviously entertainment and other types of forms of viewing content. These kinds of things hold value. And so we're seeing more and more, our customers certainly looking at how they can leverage that platform well beyond, the pure let's get folks connected. That's obviously the first step. But there's ways that educational customers, public venues, and others are using these networks to do a lot more. Obviously, hospitality and things of that nature as well. So, more and more, this is how we're packaging our solutions together. Is looking at ways we can integrate with other ecosystems to enhance the overall experience of the user and provide other additional ways that these services can be used and monetized. I do have another poll. Let's say one more slide here. One thing I did want to point out, if you weren't aware, is because we're talking about Wi-Fi here, as a Cambium customer WISP that works with our outdoor point-to-point, point-to-multipoint products. We have tools to support the design of those networks, link planners, see and heat, etc. I want to make sure you're aware of a free tool we have online, Wi-Fi Designer, for designing your Wi-Fi networks. So this solution is available right off the website for free. Supports all of the Cambium Wi-Fi solutions, Wi-Fi 6, CN Pilot, Xeris, and you can dial it up, load a floor plan up, and place your APs there to get coverage and generate a heat map, all available to you at no cost. So we provide this to our customers and partners for designing Wi-Fi. So just make sure you're aware of that. It's another tool in your arsenal to leverage as part of the designing these networks and specifically supporting a Wi-Fi 6 as well. I have another poll here. If you want to take a look at this one, this is related to your use cases. So do you have any use cases or applications, scenarios that would benefit from Wi-Fi 6? If you look at your infrastructure, if you look at what your customers are doing, would Wi-Fi 6 benefit in higher capacity, kind of an obvious one, but what about higher quality? What about IoT or other, any feedback on that? Would be interested to kind of see. You can select multiple ones at the same time. if you have applications where you see Wi-Fi 6 as specifically, benefiting some of the scenarios that you run. So right now, we have the technology integrated into our access solutions, our access points, that are sitting at the edge of the network. Increasingly, we will, see that technology move in through our PMP product line as well, ePMP. So let's take a look at the results here. And I'm seeing certainly the capacity and the quality components are big. I mean, that's probably how most people are thinking about it. But certainly, IoT use cases are very interesting as well. And I'm sure there's going to be many other, applications and reasons why we see Wi-Fi 6 prominent from that perspective. Okay, let's move along here. And we want to talk a little bit about opportunities from a managed service perspective. So, as a Cambium customer, as a Cambium WISP, you're working with wireless services to deliver fixed broadband to your customers, and the opportunity exists to look at those kinds of services for delivering the Wi-Fi solutions as well. So within the home, within the business, within the customer that you're delivering the broadband and the internet connectivity to, we have many partners today that deliver these services for the Wi-Fi itself. So it's changing that, CapEx model to an OpEx model for them, and allowing them to, get a managed service and get connectivity at a more immutable way of making those payments over time. So this is a program. I came over from the Zurich side last year within the Cambium, and we had a strong MSP program that sold our Wi-Fi through to MSPs. And we wanted to present a little bit about that because we see it as an opportunity for our WISP customers at Cambium today to look at these kinds of services and these offerings as a way to enhance your potential revenue streams with your customers. And Wi-Fi 6, I think, provides a really good opportunity to do that and sell it as a managed service. And Drew, I know you had some thoughts on here in terms of why. Maybe you can speak a little bit to some of those points there in terms of how, why and how you see Wi-Fi 6 applying to this.
Yeah, where we've seen an increase in the demand for Wi-Fi 6 as opposed to Wi-Fi 5 has been because it, and I think in a couple slides we talked about, if I can jump into some of it now, is there, if you look at what the benefits of Wi-Fi 6 are versus Wi-Fi 5, when you're talking about in a customer environment, whether it's a restaurant, whether it's a surf shop, whether it's a retail location, the big thing was efficiency with crowds, right? You can get a lot of people online at the same time, which in 2020 isn't necessarily a thing. So you gotta take out that component of it where it's like, okay, well, if we're not looking at the sheer number of people in a single environment, then what else? Why is Wi-Fi 6 important? And I think what really stands out there is, even though you may not be looking at a sheer number of people, you can look at a sheer number of devices. And that's what we're seeing from the restaurant industry and from the retail industry, is you have people that are using this for a number of different things. They're using Wi-Fi for a number of different things in their environment. And those happen to be streaming video at the same time as smart thermostats, at the same time as sensors for, fry cookers, or sensors for motors on refrigerators. You have all these weird devices that are using things that are consuming a ton of bandwidth in different ways, right? And that's where Wi-Fi 6 really stands out, is to go back to the resource unit conversation. That's kind of the big one for me, is when I can go into a customer that's a restaurant, right? And this restaurant's sitting there looking at it, and they're saying, okay, we need to figure out a way to make sure that we can satisfy the people that come in, right? If they come in to pick up an order quickly, we want to make sure that we have some type of real-time location services that we can leverage off of our Wi-Fi. At the same time, we need to know the temperature of our cookers and of our fryers, right? And at the same time, we need to run video screens for all of our menus. And then we have people that are sitting in the parking lot waiting for their orders to come out, who are streaming video, who are jumping online, who are, or they're just getting there and they're trying to order from one of the food delivery services and have that food brought out to them in the parking lot. When you start to look at all these different ways that Wi-Fi is being consumed now, it is totally different than what it was 9 months ago, than a year ago. And so Wi-Fi 6 gives you the ability to hit that nail on the head by going to the customer and saying, look, I have something that's going to work a little bit better than it worked before. Because in a traditional Wi-Fi 5 environment, you wouldn't stick, an AP outside and an AP inside and expect it to react well to the environment that's around there. But if you take the crowd out of the store and you replace it with a number of devices that are in a store, whether it's retail, whether it's restaurant, any type of, enterprise business or mid-market business, what you have is this need for connectivity in very specific ways. And I think that that's where Wi-Fi 6 makes that really strong play, is you can go in and say, look, guys, it's time to upgrade your services. You need technology now more than ever. Your technology has to be able to handle everything that you're throwing at it. Yes, Wi-Fi 5 and Wi-Fi 6 can handle if your store reopens and a lot of people come in and they use your dining room or they use your retail location. But what are you doing to leverage technology to make sure that your store is running as efficiently as possible during the time when you need technology the most? And I think that that screams for a use case for upgrading or refreshing technology if it's available, and refreshing that technology with something like Wi-Fi 6 or specifically Wi-Fi 6 that gives them the ability to take advantage of everything that it offers. That's really where I'm seeing the trend going. It's not so much about, okay, I got to get 200 people connected, or I have to get 50 people connected, or I have to get 20 people in this diner connected on their so maybe they can move to point of sale on a tablet. Now it's about, how am I connecting all the things in the best way possible to make sure that I can operate my store as efficiently as possible, whether or not there's people actually inside the store or not. And that trend really leads itself into Wi-Fi 6, I think. It's where we're seeing the uptake.
Yeah, that's a very good points. I mean, I think there's an inflection point here too, kind of created by the changing ways that people are working and doing things. There's people are looking at new ways of doing things more efficiently, and we hear that really on a really regular basis from our customers. In the enterprise, is relooking at things, the way they're doing things on their day-to-day operations in business or in school or in retail, as you mentioned, or otherwise. Is they want to be more efficient. They need to be more efficient. Business models have changed due to COVID. In many cases, many industries completely turned upside down, and so maybe they have taken some revenue hits. They can't have as many employees operating. They're looking at automation or new ways of thinking about things so they can stay ahead of the curve and be competitive. And things will eventually get more back to normal, but the businesses are having to adjust in the meantime to make sure that they are competitive. And those are good points or inflection points for new technology to potentially take hold if you're trying to enable new services and opportunities at the same time. So, the managed service, is one thing we wanted to talk through a bit today. This is also something that, like I said, organically is kind of coming up just based on changing business models. From a cash flow perspective, businesses can see a smaller investment up front to get a new service or something turned on, as opposed to making the larger capital outlay up front. So we're seeing this in many of our customers, from education or different types of businesses. Otherwise, they're open to turning up something that maybe they can kind of put their toe in the water, so to speak. Easier to say yes to a monthly payment, something that's a shorter term, as opposed to a longer term CapEx commitment that that puts them in for 5 years or otherwise. So I think these dynamics are evident.
That's one of the things that turned me into doing managed services with my business was when operating a WISP, right? You're worried about every dollar, and you're worried about how do you make new dollars, how do you get more dollars to come in, and how do you capitalize on whatever marketplace that you've built out for yourself. And from a managed services perspective, I saw that as just one more avenue for revenue, right? If you have a business or Joe's Pizza Shop that has seven pizza locations in the greater Scranton area or whatever it is, if you have these businesses that have a need for Wi-Fi, that have a need for connectivity, and they're just going down to the store and buying an off-the-shelf product, or if they're trying to figure out how to do it, or they're not taking advantage of some of the enterprise features that they could be, custom splash pages, maybe some couponing, maybe different things that these retail or restaurant environments can take advantage of now that they have a captive audience using the Wi-Fi. Now what this opens up to me is that opportunity for managed services, because again, everyone right now is living and breathing off of technology, whether it's the big box store down the street that I pull up to that automatically recognizes that I'm there and it runs something out to my car. and they're using a tablet for Wi-Fi, or the drive-through businesses, or the restaurants that have had to convert to, accepting people in the parking lots using, whatever branded service it is on a tablet or on a mobile device. Everybody's using Wi-Fi for something now, and not everybody understands Wi-Fi. And I think that that's where, from a WISP perspective, people who operate WISPs understand Wi-Fi and wireless way more than a traditional IT person does. And I think that this is a great opportunity to leverage that, right? So you can go in and you can say, hey, look, we provide the connectivity to your location. Let us make you an offer to install wireless access points at your location. We'll manage them. We'll take care of them. We'll support them. And instead of charging you $500 for an AP, or $200 for an AP, or $100 for an AP, you know what we'll do? On the back end, what you do is you buy the stuff at cost from your distributor of choice, right? You purchase this equipment, you have your cost involved in it, and you roll it into a lease for that customer. And you say, hey, Mr. Customer, what we're going to do is it's going to be X amount of dollars per month over the course of the next year, and that's going to include the software, or it's going to include the device itself. It's going to include us managing it. It's going to include us taking care of it. It's going to include all the tech support that you need. And that way you don't have to worry about your Wi-Fi working. We'll make it work for you. But on the WISP side, you're not buying it at the same cost that they would buy it. You're not taking one of these APs and you're not paying $600, $800, whatever it is for it. You're paying your cost with your distributor, with your Cambium partner level. You're buying it at that level, and you're just leasing it out to them. So now what you do is you run this calculation and you say, okay, if I'm charging X amount of dollars per month, how long is it going to take me to realize the cost of that equipment? And then after that, it's gravy, right? After that, it's now you're making money on equipment that's already deployed out in the field. If you know how to do it and you do it correctly the first time, you're not going to have to worry about all the technical support calls, because they're not going to come because you did it correctly, because you set the expectations correctly, you installed it correctly, you maintain it, and you support it correctly. Now that Wi-Fi component that's out at your buddy's restaurant or his retail shop, or whether it's a bait and tackle shop or a soda shop, whatever it is, now you're taking care of their Wi-Fi for them. It gives them peace of mind. It gives them, they don't have to worry about it. One of the things I've always said at Frontera is, we take technology out of the way so that you can be the best at what you do while letting us be the best at what we do. And I think that that's something that every WISP that can resonate with every WISP is y'all know Wi-Fi, y'all know wireless, you know how it works, you know what the problems are. If you offload that from your customers and you say, hey man, you know what, start with the small AP, start with whatever it is, you buy it at your cost, lease it out monthly, make them a stickier customer, because now you've got that monthly recurring revenue coming in from them. You're boosting your operating revenue, because now go get a guy with 100 locations, go get a guy with 10 locations, go get a lady who operates 14 shops, whatever it is. Now you've got monthly revenue coming in at the tail end of your WISP connection, right? Now it's not just about connecting that one location. Now, what are you doing to drive revenue in that area? And I think that now, with this increased demand for people to use wireless technology, whether it's Wi-Fi 5 or Wi-Fi 6, I know we're talking about Wi-Fi 6, but whether this is a great time to upgrade them and say, hey, look, let me handle your wireless for you. It's a new service I'm offering. It's $20 a month. It's $30 a month. It's $50 a month. Whatever it is, go to these restaurants and you'll see, and these retail locations, and you'll see that they have a strong desire for this. They don't know technology. Yeah. They don't want to know technology. They just want something that works so that they can continue to figure out how to run their business in this really weird time that they're in. The last thing they want to do is worry about wireless. That's where you come in. You all watching this, however many people are dialed in right now, you all are the wireless experts in your communities. Go out into those communities and make yourself known. Be the Wi-Fi person at the end of the WISP person, and really start to look at the managed services opportunity that you have there. So that's my soapbox for the day. But hey, it's funny. It's just it's revenue that's sitting out there waiting for you. You know what I mean? Yeah. And might as well take advantage of it.
Yeah, and from where we sit as a vendor, we're seeing the pull for this kind of thing from our customers. They're asking for, this type of way to consume, and you can relate this back to the macro trends too. I mean, look at Airbnb. Basically the largest hotel in the world equivalent, but they don't even own the hotel, the buildings, right? Look at Uber, the largest taxi company in the world. They don't own the cars. right? It's
That's
how
right.
people consume things today, right? And the expectations, especially for millennials and folks that are growing up, is that's how they buy things. They don't expect to own it. They just want to be able to dial it up and get the service and go forward, right? And not worry about it. And so
Well, and
it's
it's
the
got to work.
mentality
Like
even that people have.
that's the key. Is the thing that makes all of
Yeah.
those important. Uber, Airbnb, all these other services. Is it works? It works
Mm-hmm.
when you need it, and it
Yeah.
works when you want to use it. And the
Yeah.
problem that we're seeing, right, is as every regular Joe that goes out and tries to use or set up Wi-Fi in their store so that they can do parking lot service, or they can do curbside delivery or curbside pickup, they're realizing that, well, my Wi-Fi doesn't work in front of my store. And they don't realize it's because their Wi-Fi router is sitting on top of a toilet in the back of the restaurant, and of course it's not going to work out with it. But that's where small modifications can come in, where you say, look, let me fix this for you, and while I'm doing that, let me upgrade you to Wi-Fi 6. I'm going to put in some brand new technology that's here, and while we're talking about that, you could leverage this to do things like your thermostat, right? So that you make sure that the temperature is always set, so that your electricity bill isn't popping up and down everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
You can use it so you can put a sensor on the back of your walk-in refrigerator to make sure that the motor is running the way that it's supposed to. And if you see it being sporadic, well, maybe you need to run some maintenance on it. So you can start to leverage Wi-Fi 6 and its resource units and all the other fun things that Wi-Fi 6 consists of to help them become more operationally efficient. And I'm not saying fire people. That's not, operational efficiency is always, right next to, well, we're going to make cutbacks, I'm not saying get rid of your staff. What I'm saying is leverage technology to help them understand how they can leverage technology to run a smoother business, whether it's keeping the thermostat at 76 instead of 74, whether it's making sure they know how many times the door is open and closed, whether it's they know how many people are in their building at any given time and how long each person spends in there. There's a lot of stuff that Wi-Fi can be leveraged for, but it's up to the people, i.e. the people watching this, who understand how this technology works, to be able to pitch that and put that into a way that they can understand to help them out, so they can literally not lose their business, but at the same time it helps your business as well. So I think there's such a strong case for managed services, especially because of the reliance on wireless technology at the moment.
Yeah, very well put.
Though, you know what I mean?
Yeah, very well put. There's a natural demand for it, and moving on a little bit here from just what we can offer as a vendor. I don't have a lot of Cambium slides in here, but we do have a solution that is focused on supporting these types of use cases. So it all comes back to the management platform that we have. And the hooks that are in there specifically to support the multi-tenant capabilities, the APIs, and the integration concepts, so that we can take the requirements that you need as an MSP and service it from a single console, from a single platform. So we'll get into details here, but know that both from the Zura side of the house and the Cambium side of the house, these two technologies are converging over the last year and a half. We have a lot here at play that can help you as an MSP. So you're probably already running CNMeister today with your existing solutions. As we roll out some new versions coming up here and some enhancements, you'll see more and more MSP capabilities rolled into the application as well, that allows you to integrate and to mature your business too. So this is something that we've been working on over time to enhance within the platform, and then converging the technologies together. Wanted to just do a third poll here, is the last one, based on, if you are delivering managed services today, do you have any of these types of customers? We were just kind of curious to see if there was any of these types of use cases out there in the audience. If you have a managed service practice today, we probably should have listed other ones here, but there was a max of 5 or 6, I think, with the tool. But do you have any hotels? Do you have any dormitories? Kind of refers more to a temporary living for like educational facilities. A lot of those go to MSP type of customers, and then education, being another one. And we'll hold this open for a little bit more. Just kind of curious to see what you guys have there in the audience. All right. Actually, more of you have have these kinds of
Question
use
that came in,
cases.
it was does CM Meister have these capabilities today? And yeah, the answer is yes. It's there
Yeah,
right now.
yeah,
The
yeah.
easy answer, right?
Right. Yeah, a lot of what we're talking about here in that previous slide, those capabilities are in the tool today, and there's more to come. Here's the results of the polls. Actually, we saw quite a bit in education, so that's interesting. Education, by the way, is the #1 market from a revenue and dollars spent perspective for enterprise grade Wi-Fi. Not home based or consumer based, but education is, obviously ubiquitously wireless. Most 15-year-old kids do not know what an Ethernet jack is or an RJ45, right? They only connect wirelessly. And so, that is the biggest market. And it's interesting to see that over half of you actually said yes, that education is something that you have been deploying managed service to. So that is definitely a big focus of us as Cambium as well. And
what I see there? Right there where it says none, 33%, that means that 33% have the opportunity to go out today and figure out a new way to drive some revenue into their business. You know what I mean? That's right. I don't see that as a negative. I'm sitting there going, well, 33% of you are not doing what 56% of you, combine the 56, the 33, you got 89% plus that 11. You have a pretty decent percentage of people that are out there already doing this. And for those 33% that are not doing that managed services today, or those managed services today, that means that there is an opportunity that people are realizing, people that are just like you are realizing at this exact moment that you're not taking advantage of. And I think that that's a cool call to action, because whether it's because you haven't considered it or because you haven't found the use case for it, for those of you that answered none, get out there. There's a great opportunity for you, especially today, that can really help you out.
Yeah. And we didn't even qualify this question with Wi-Fi. So perhaps some of these are services being delivered to these customers through, outdoor point-to-point type of links. The Wi-Fi could be an additive to that solution or that offering that you already have to support the indoor connectivity at these existing customers as well. So,
and there's a great question that came in, and it's, it came in right at the same time. It says, how do Cambium's Wi-Fi solutions compare to others on the market in terms of price? Price is obviously a huge deal. What I'll say as an end user, as a partner, as a reseller, as a managed service provider, what I would say is that from an economical perspective, they're much more economical than anything that you'll find. If you do a quick search and you go see some of my friends on the internet, Baltic always has the lowest price, right? If you go look at their website, they always have it listed lower than everybody else. It's not a pitch for them, but hi guys. Anyway, so if you go just do a quick Google and you look what the comparison is on these access points, enterprise AP for enterprise AP, pound for pound, you're going to find the Cambium product is a lot less expensive by orders of magnitudes, right? And what that means for me, what that tells me is it's not just that they found a more efficient way to do it because, blah, 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 blah. They've stripped everything out, the centralized management, there's no ongoing cost. There's a lot of really cool reasons why Cambium Wi-Fi makes sense. But I think to me, what's really neat is don't forget to factor in the fact that whatever you see online, that's not what you pay for it. You call distribution as a Cambium partner, and you buy these APs at a completely different price. And when you go and you turn around to let a customer, to lease that to a customer, to sell it to a customer, if you're selling it, that's one thing. But if you're leasing it, the price that you pay for these access points, you're going to amortize over the course of a year, over 2 years, over 3 years, whatever your service contract is. So your cost is going to be different than whatever price you see online, which is still significantly less than what you would pay for some of the top 4, top 5 brands out there in the world that do these things, these big enterprise wireless access points. You're going to find that the price point is a lot lower than what you have out there. But to me, where it really makes a lot of sense is you're talking about the management components of this. If I can manage my point-to-point, and I can manage my point-to-multipoint, and I can manage my CBRS, and I can manage my 60 gig, and I can manage my Wi-Fi, and I can manage my users' home routers all in one screen. And right now, the CM Maestro product right now doesn't cost anything. If I can manage that in one location without having to figure out 3 or 4 different systems, and it's all cloud-based, the cost of management of this is way different than everything else. And if you talk about the warranty, and if you talk about the availability, and you talk about everything that goes into making the Cambium product what it is, you're going to find that the total cost of ownership of this product is way less expensive than some of the other things. Now, how does that compare to some of the other groups that are out there, some of the lower cost, competitors, if you will? And I don't mind talking about this because they brought me in, so you guys knew what you're getting in. So if you compare it to the other groups that are out there, you may have other groups that offer cheaper access points, right? And I mean that in every sense of the word. You've got different quality of hardware production. Yeah, sure, they're widely deployed, but that doesn't mean that they're better. You've got lower failure rates for equipment to come in. I just deployed 1,000 Cambium access points outside in the field of the E700 AP, and our failure rate was 0. The only ones that failed are because someone left one in a bucket truck overnight and it soaked in water from the rain. So that was an equipment failure. But out of 1,000 access points that I had delivered in the course of 60 days, none of them failed. These are APs, none of them fail. So you've got lower equipment failure rates. You've got no management fee. You don't have some ongoing annual fee for it. And the management platform that you use for this is Maestro, and it works with everything that you already have. So you're not spending money on licensing, and you're not spending money on services, and you're not spending money to ship equipment back and forth because it didn't work as soon as you open up the box. You have a super low total cost of ownership with this, and the management is just this ongoing thing that doesn't cost you anything extra at the moment. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
I hope that answered that question. If it didn't, ask another question in the chat, and I will give you a completely candid response, whether they like it or not.
You'll get it regardless. Yeah. Please enter any questions that you have into the tool there, and we'll continue to take them. So, but yeah, Drew, you bring up a really good point in terms of total cost, because I know that there's different announcements come out. Oh, we got a really low cost AP. This is attracts the attention, but you really have to look at the broader solution. I mean, to us, a product is hardware, software, services, support. There's a whole ecosystem around a solution, especially as you get into a managed service, because you're interested in more than obviously, you're changing hardware CapEx into OpEx, but the ongoing servicing that you need to support that customer, entails many, many different things. And so it's that overall total cost of ownership that really needs to be looked at from that perspective.
Well, and you bring up, we had talked about this, and we still have the poll up, so I can't see your face. So I don't know if I'm looking at the screen or whatever. I think the poll's still running there. But you and I talked about this yesterday about not all Wi-Fi 6 APs are the same, right? You have some that are, well, it's Wi-Fi 6 on the 5 gig, but it may not be Wi-Fi 6 on the 2.4 side, or it's Wi-Fi 6 on the 2.4 side, but maybe not on the 5 gig. Can you? I mean, I know you've had some experience where you've seen some stuff in the market. Can you color that up a little bit? I mean, I know we had spoken about, but you had some really good examples.
Yeah, that's an important point too. There's been some recent announcements by some companies of Wi-Fi 6 product, but you have to look under the hood to really understand what you're getting. And what we've seen is that there's a big difference between what you're deploying, for example, on the 5 gigahertz side versus the 2.4. And I would call some of the new products that we've seen, they're only half of a Wi-Fi 6 AP. They're using the old technology for one band and the new for the other. You don't get a full support for all the things that we just talked about earlier. So, again, we don't have a lot of product slides in here, but our kind of entry level or our volume level, I should say, Wi-Fi 6 solution is Wi-Fi 6 across the board. It has a high-speed uplink, so you can get the full capacity out of the AP, because these APs now, these connections are more than a gig even, right? But if you're throttling it on the wire, there's literally products out there that can't even get the full capacity because they have a single gig uplink, and our products will have a multi-gig. So, those are the details that you may not be running into initially when you deploy, but you have to keep in mind all solutions are not created equal. And then, as I mentioned before, you really have to look at this total layer of everything on top of that, the software and support and services, in terms of looking at the overall cost of ownership. People get too focused in on the one piece of it, but it really is a much broader discussion when it comes to what you're ultimately going to be paying for and how the customer is going to benefit from that technology over time.
Yeah, it's day two, right? I mean, there's one cost that's the cost to buy the equipment, procure the equipment, install the equipment. That's the network goes live day 0. What about day 2? What about day 2 when when you have to worry about, oh man, I didn't pay my license fee for support, or I have to, upgrade my license and my network management software in order to do this. What happens
Yeah.
then? And I think that's, like you said, a lot of people look at the sticker price and go, oh, it's $199 or it's $899. That's ridiculous. But if you stop and you go, well, you factor in everything that's involved in it, how much less power you're going to use because you're not running your own site server, how much less compute, how much less support are you going to have internally to what you're doing? What's the learning curve going to be for the people that are supporting Wi-Fi 6 now versus the people that just support point to multipoint? When you look at the total cost of what this is going to be, that's what I really like about the Cambium package. When you couple up the hardware along with Maestro or XMS, I think there's some really neat things in it.
Right. So we are getting close to the top of the hour. I wanted to make sure we covered this. Is a little bit vague perhaps, but we do have some pilot programs in place that are enabling our customers, our partners, to deliver MSP managed services and basically change an OpEx model into a CapEx model into an OpEx model. Okay, with periodic payments as opposed to upfront saying, I'm going to buy this entire Wi-Fi infrastructure for a customer and have to pay for everything up front. We can allow you to stretch those payments out over time and change it into a managed service. And then, from your perspective, you would be purchasing the equipment from us, on a payment plan, and then you would pass that on to your customers with your markup according to that. So it's not a released into the marketplace. It's a pilot program, but contact us about that if you are interested, because the managed service opportunity that we talked about, we believe is really real. We're very bullish about it. Drew explained it very well. He does it himself. We have many customers who do it historically from where I came from the Zero side as well. And we put together a program that allows you to actually sell and will purchase a product from us and sell it that way. It's still in a pilot phase. So contact us about that if you're looking for more information. I have a kind of generic sales rep here, but if you have a contact at Cambium, they can put you into connection with the right people internally, and we can talk to you about setting up this kind of program for yourself. So
that's awesome. That wasn't available when I did it.
Yeah.
But I'm glad it is. I'm glad it is now. I think that's pretty awesome. It's definitely this goes back to that 33% that answered that they weren't doing anything. I would hope that 33% reach out and let y'all know. That's pretty cool. Especially if it's if you don't have to outlay. When I think about some of the ones that we did, if you look at if one of my busiest properties right now is a condominium complex down on South Padre Island, about a mile away from where they're about to pop a rocket off at Boca Chica Beach with SpaceX, and you wouldn't know that there's anything different on a weekend with good weather. That place fills up, and there's so many people that are there, and they go in and there's tons of really cool social distancing stuff happening out on the beach where no one's around each other, but those condos are filling up, and down in these resort areas, those are still filling up. And just because there's a lot of areas that are either under lockdown for some way, shape, or form, a lot of these vacation areas are just going bananas right now. And when you start to look at places like that, I mean, it cost, I don't know, $40,000, $50,000, whatever it was, for us to do the deployment out at that location. So we had to go and figure out, where do we get the money? Do we borrow it from a bank? Do we negotiate with our distributors? Like, how do we make this happen? Because we knew there was an opportunity. Do we go procure? Do we dig deep into pockets, find the money, do the deployment, and can we sustain that? If there was an opportunity like this, man, where I just figure out a deal with you guys where I can go deploy the equipment, mark it up, and then just pay my note on the back end to you guys. I mean, that's what a tremendous opportunity that is. So if those 33% of you that answered none, call Bruce, figure it out. That's cool. I'll be calling you guys also.
Yeah. Somebody just pointed out that the pilot program is only in the U.S. So it is as of today. So if you're international, we are looking at rolling that out more broadly. But as of today, again, it's a pilot. So we're trying to, get things squared away and the system tuned. And then the idea is to roll that out more broadly on an international basis. So wow, we ended up coming up to the top of the hour here. I think we actually did go through most of the questions that came in over time. So I want to thank everyone for sticking around to the end. There are some handouts. If you, in your console there, I threw some documents in there, including the presentation that you just saw, if you want to download that. Olivia, if you could just keep the webinar open for a few more minutes past the hour so we can, so people can get those downloads. Want to thank everyone for joining today. Thank you very much, Drew, for taking the time out to join us. And, contact us, regarding this pilot program if there's interest, or for more information on what we're doing with Wi-Fi 6. But again, thanks everyone for attending here, and we'll be talking to you again soon.
Cool.
Bye now.
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks, Drew.